ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. First, our top stories. Chadian President Deby grants pardon to opposition leader Success Masra. Women's leadership gap in Africa takes center stage at Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Center Forum in Dakar.
The doors that are open for us must remain open. Where there are no doors, we must help create them.
Guinean President Doumbouya returns after weeks of speculation on whereabouts, and illegal mining threatens public health and livelihoods in several regions of Ghana.
We found some of the pollutants that's associated with illegal mining in the Volta River. We still have a good number of our population depending on the Volta stretch.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining the broadcast and a warm welcome to all of our listeners across the sub-region and beyond. We'll begin in Chad, where President Mohamed Idris Deby Itno has granted a presidential pardon to opposition leader Success Masra, paving the way for his release from prison where he was serving a 20-year sentence. The pardon was announced in two decrees signed and published Friday by the Presidency of the Republic. Masra had also been ordered to pay 1 billion CFA francs in damages following his conviction. The decision comes 4 days after President Deby announced plans to pardon certain prisoners. According to the authorities, Masra's pardon followed a formal request submitted by his lawyers. 8 other political figures linked to the former GCAP coalition, including party leaders and secretaries general, are also covered by the presidential measure. We cross over to Mali, where transition president General Assimi Goïta has granted a presidential pardon to French officer Jean-Christian Bernard Veziela. He and several other Malian soldiers were arrested in Bamako in August 2025 and accused of involvement in an attempted coup. A Malian court later convicted Veziela of undermining the state's external security. Sankli Janko completes the story.
Tried last June by the Malian courts, Yann Vezilia was sentenced to 20 years in prison for undermining the external security of the state. He was also banned from entering Malian territory for 20 years. This French army officer was arrested in August 2025 for attempting a coup in collision with senior Malian army officers, including Generals Abbas Dambele and Nema Sagara. According to Malian authorities, the pardon granted to Frenchman Yann Vezilia followed a good officer's mission by a brotherly country whose name was not disclosed. General Issa Ousmane Coulibaly, Minister of Territorial Administration and Government spokesperson, explains the gesture.
Son Excellence, le Général d'Armée, Assimi Goïta.
His Excellency General Assimi Goïta, President of the Transition and Head of State, has granted a presidential pardon to Mr. Jean-Christian Bernard Vezilia, a French national who was sentenced by the Malian courts to 20 years imprisonment for endangering the external security of the state. The transitional government takes this opportunity to commend a brotherly nation whose good offices, exercised with discretion and scrupulous respect for Mali's sovereignty, contributed to obtaining this pardon.
While Yann Vezilia was pardoned after a year of detention, the Malian officers arrested with him in the same case remain in custody, awaiting trial.
Sankli Janko voiced their report as filed in by our Bamako correspondent Aliou Cham. Elsewhere, Guinea's President Mamadi Doumbouya has returned to Conakry, ending 3 weeks of absence despite speculation about his whereabouts. The Guinean leader had not been seen in public since leaving the country on 13th of February for the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. Doumbouya landed an hour ago at Ahmed Sékou Touré International Airport in Conakry, putting the speculation to rest. Authorities have said on Monday that he was in good health and had taken a few days of rest for a routine medical checkup, although it was not immediately clear where he had traveled to. The president was welcomed at the airport by his wife, Lauren Doumbouya, Prime Minister Amadou Riba, and several military commanders and other officials, while thousands of his supporters lined on the streets waving the country's flag and cheering as his motorcade moved to the presidential palace. Meanwhile, the Dixon Court of First Instance in Conakry delivered its verdict in the case involving alleged fraud in the judicial recruitment examination. Sekou Keita, a communications advisor at the Ministry of Justice, has been sentenced to 1 year in prison and fined 2 million Guinean francs. His co-defendant, Masire Camara, was also fined 2 million Guinean francs and barred from taking part in the judicial trainee examination for 5 years. However, the defense rejects the ruling and announces plans to appeal. Francis Boniface tells us more.
Sekou Keita, communications advisor at the Ministry of Justice, and his co-defendant Masire Camara appeared in the dock on Thursday to answer the fraud charges against them. After 24 hours of hearings, the Dixon Court of First Instance delivered its verdict.
After deliberating on the public prosecution, the court found Masire Camara guilty of the charges reclassified as complicity in attempted fraud in a regional union of civil servants competition. Sekou Keita was sentenced to 1 year of imprisonment and a 2 million Guinean franc fine. Masire Camara was also banned from participating in the judicial budget competition for a period of 5 years.
Following the verdict, the deputy prosecutor, Fanka Olare, expressed some satisfaction with the court's decision, even though it did not entirely align with the prosecution's demands. However, the defense counsel strongly contested the judgment. The lawyers, led by attorney Amadou Wuri Diallo, argued that the decision is not in accordance with the law and announced their intention to appeal to a higher court.
This is completely contrary to the demands we have submitted. We are seriously considering, after further consultation, whether or not to appeal this decision.
This case dates back to Sunday, August 9, the last day of the magistrate recruitment exam, which was marred by suspicions of fraud. The investigation led to the arrest of Sekou Keita and Masire Camara, who were taken for prosecution.
A report from Conakry correspondent Cherno Afai Ibrahim Abadi and voiced by Francis Boniface. In Burkina Faso, the long-running Norbert Zongo case has taken a new legal turn. A defense lawyer has filed an appeal with the Supreme Court, just as the case was expected to proceed to trial in the coming weeks or months. The appeal effectively suspends the investigation at its current stage and could delay further proceedings. The move comes as the case continues to draw public attention, years after the killing of investigative journalist Norbert Zongo and 3 others. Abdullah Hassan reports.
On March 17, 2025, the investigating judge at Chamber No. 4 of the Ouagadougou High Court issued an order committing the defendants in the Norbert Zongo case to trial. Following an appeal filed by their lawyers on March 20 of the same year, the investigating chamber of the Ouagadougou Court of Appeal upheld this committal on July 30, 2026. As the case was ready for trial, Paul Carey, lawyer for Banagolo Yaro, one of the defendants, filed an appeal with the Supreme Court on July 31. The proceedings are now stalled as prosecutors await a decision from the first president of the Court of Cassation. It should be noted that 3 people are accused in the Norbert Zongo case. They are Francois Campore, younger brother of former President Blaise Campore, prosecuted for inciting the commission of an assassination; Wanga Christophe Kombaseri, charged with murder and aggravated intentional destruction of property, and Banogolo Yaro, prosecuted for complicity in murder and aggravated intentional destruction of property. Francois Campore has been in exile in France since the 2014 popular uprising. The extradition proceedings initiated by the Burkinabe justice system are currently at a standstill, as France ultimately revoked its extradition order in December 2023.
Abdullah Hassan with the details of Martin Carver's report from Ouagadougou.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Let's take you now to Benin, where the internal rules of the newly installed Senate are drawing strong criticism. Senators have granted themselves broader powers, raising concerns among political observers and members of the public. Critics fear the new powers could give the Senate an influence that places it above other state institutions. Details with Augustine Colley.
With the entry into force of its internal regulations, the new Chamber of Parliament has a precise framework for carrying out its missions. The text adopted on July 30 includes 103 articles. It sets in particular the operating rules of the Senate, the rights and obligations of senators, as well as certain procedures relating to parliamentary life. But certain provisions deserve particular attention. Among other things is the possibility given to the Senate to to end the mandate of an elected deputy. However, this provision poses an essential question about how far the powers of the Senate can go in the National Assembly. There is also the question of granting diplomatic passports to senators. According to Article 95 of the Senate's internal regulations, each senator benefits from a diplomatic passport for the duration of his mandate. The privilege also extends to his children under the age of 21, a provision widely criticized in public opinion. Today, a question remains about the installation of the Senate. Will this new institution be seen as a true instrument of democratic control and balance, or as a new source of political privileges? This question remains unanswered.
Augustin Curley with the details of Aziz Adam Solei's report from Cotonou. Back in Senegal, the bill on the legal framework governing special funds was adopted yesterday by a majority of members of the parliamentary committee. The debate once again exposed differences between the parliamentary majority and the government. According to our sources, the 6 amendments proposed by the government represented during the discussions by the Minister of Justice, Moussa Sarr, were rejected by PASTEF. So what does the bill provide? The bill seeks to strictly regulate, and it is important to emphasize the word strictly, the use of these special funds, and clearly define their scope. In particular, the text provides that the funds may only be used for activities related to national defense. They may also be used to finance intelligence operations and activities linked to internal and external security. In the meantime, Africa continues to grapple with the underrepresentation of women in decision-making processes. As part of efforts to address this situation, the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center for Women and Development is bringing together African leaders, policymakers, and gender advocates in Dakar for this year's Amuje Forum, a platform dedicated to advancing women's political leadership across the continent. Participants are examining the progress made, barriers that persist, and steps needed to ensure that women's leadership becomes the norm. Veronica Njai attended the forum and now reports.
For many of the women gathered in Dakar, the conversation is not just about increasing the number of women in leadership. It is about ensuring that the next generation faces fewer barriers than those who came before. Former Liberian president and founder of the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf urged women to rise above the obstacles standing their way.
Each and every one of us can be what each and every one of us Ronnie was. It takes the ability to rise above the obstacles and to become what you want to be.
Namibian President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, who sent a virtual message, said leadership must improve the lives of citizens while creating more opportunities for future generations of women.
The doors that are open for us must remain open. Where there are no doors, we must help create them. Our leadership must make the journey for the women who come after us less difficult and their possibilities greater.
According to former Senegalese Prime Minister Aminata Touré, persistent gender stereotypes continue to portray politics as a male domain.
We face cultural, institutional, economic, and security-related obstacles. And among the key challenges, we can include gender stereotypes. Politics is still viewed as a male-dominated sphere.
For the Queen Consort of Nigeria's Warri Kingdom, Olori Atuwatsi III, the goal is to make women in leadership an expectation rather than an exception.
Our assignment is to build an Africa where a woman in top leadership position is not seen as an extraordinary event to be poked at and amused and even admired.
The forum, which continues today, calls for governments, political parties and institutions to dismantle barriers to women's leadership.
Veronica Njai filed that report. Well, let's now focus on the environment. In Ghana, citizens could rely on imported water in the coming years if illegal mining continues unchecked. Scientists at the CSIR Water Research Institute say more than 60% of Ghana's water bodies are already polluted, threatening water security, public health and livelihoods. Communities across Ghana's major mining belts and river catchment areas are grappling with polluted water, degraded farmlands and destroyed ecosystem. Ali Blim Awuku reports.
The situation is particularly difficult in parts of the Western, Ashanti, eastern and central regions, where illegal mining has polluted or threatened major rivers, including the Pra, Ankobra, Brim, Ofin, Oda, and Tano. Water entering some Ghana Water Company treatment plants has recorded turbidity levels between 5,000 and 12,000 NTU, compared with a cited permissible point of 500 NTU. Researchers are also warning about the growing threat to the Volta River system and its tributaries, which support communities and economic activities across Ghana. Research scientist at CSIR Water Research Institute, Dr. Zita Buntori, says the threat also threatens the livelihoods of communities that depend on the Volta River and other water systems.
We found some of the pollutants that are associated with illegal mining in the Volta River. We still have a good number of our population depending on the Volta stretch without treatment. It means that they are at risk over time.
Health practitioners are also raising concerns about the possible effects of prolonged exposure to contaminated water, including reproductive and developmental complications.
We are looking at not just the dust that comes off, but heavy metals like the mercury, lead, cadmium, vanadium, all of these things come, other chemicals which are identified as mining pollutants like cyanide, and all of these things have detrimental effects to our health.
The contamination is also generating fears about food security. Head of Aquaculture at CSIR-WRI, Dr. Seth Kranting Ejakwa, is calling for stronger cooperation to protect shared water resources.
Because we haven't changed our approach in managing our mining mineral resources, the environment is still being destroyed. If we don't change our approach, our food system will not be sustainable.
The warnings come as the Mahama administration pursues initiatives to tackle illegal mining. For WADR, Elikli Mauku, Accra.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Chadian President Debbie grants pardon to opposition leader Success Masra. Women's leadership gap in Africa takes center stage at Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Center Forum in Dakar. Guinean President Doumbouya returns after weeks of speculation on whereabouts. And illegal mining threatens public health and livelihoods in several regions of Ghana. Still ahead, we do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Bringing you the facts beyond the headlines. From Monrovia, Liberia, this is Abraham Parker. Stay tuned to WADR 94.9 FM Dakar.
We're also streaming live on WADR.org, YouTube, and Facebook. Now let's turn to the Gambia, where the government is stepping up effort to create safer and legal opportunities for young Gambians seeking employment abroad. The move aims to address the prevailing trend of irregular migration, mostly by young people. It is being implemented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in collaboration with international partners. From Banjul, Rosamara Cates reports.
The Gambia is working with international partners to expand legal employment pathways, skills development, and other opportunities for young Gambians, while strengthening cooperation on migration management. It maintains that access to legitimate jobs and regulated migration channels can help reduce young people's vulnerability to exploitation and dangers associated with irregular migration. Sering Mudinjai is the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
We are now living in a world that people have the right to travel. And what we are doing as a country is how we can enhance and improve our engagement with our partners to be able to make sure that issues like visas are accessible, and they can also be obtained so that people that can travel genuinely would have the opportunity also to travel.
The minister also highlighted existing measures to provide migration governance and ensure migration opportunities benefits Gambians.
The government came up with a technical working group where sectors are represented in this, technical group, of experts that are looking critically into migration, issues. Aside the technical working group, there is also the national mechanism, the broader aspect of how we can always, coordinate, migrations as a whole. It's a whole of government approach and society approach. And everybody, is included in this, national mechanisms. And at the level of cabinet too, we have a cabinet subcommittee on migration as well.
The initiative is part of the Gambia Liberia's broader migration strategy, which promotes safe, orderly, and regular migration while addressing the economic challenges that drive young people to undertake dangerous journeys. For WADR, Rose Samara Cates, Banjul.
Similarly, in Liberia, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, is calling for greater involvement of young people across the agricultural and agri-food value chains. FAO officer in charge in Liberia, Godwin Kojo, says the country's youthful population is one of its greatest assets and must be given opportunities to develop skills, establish businesses, and earn decent incomes. He made the remarks Thursday in Monrovia during the signing of a $1 million grant agreement between Liberia's Ministry of Agriculture and the Korea International Cooperation Agency, KOICA. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
The agreement will support the Green Jobs for Youth in Resilient Agro-Food Systems project, which aims to equip rural young people with skills and opportunities in Liberia's rice and cassava value chains. The project will run to 2030, beginning with a pilot phase in Bond County, central region of the country. Godwin Kojo says agriculture and agro-food systems offer one of the most important avenues for creating employment for Liberia's young population, but cautions that the youth participation must go beyond traditional farming.
Almost 3 out of every 4 Liberians are young people. This youthful population is one of Liberia's greatest assets, but it's also present an urgent responsibility. We must create productive opportunity for young Liberians to acquire skills, establish businesses, and earn decent incomes. Agriculture and agri-food system venues for doing so.
Kojo urges authorities to position young people throughout the agricultural value chain, including in processing, marketing, transportation, machinery operations, and agribusiness.
In this regard, rice is Liberia's principal staple food, leaving a substantial supply gap that is met through import. Liberia's annual per capita rice consumption is estimated.
Liberia continues to rely heavily on imported rice to meet domestic demand. Authorities say the $1 million initiative, which is also being implemented in Nigeria and Sierra Leone, is expected to contribute to Liberia's efforts to create jobs, strengthen rice and cassava production, and to build more resilient agro-food systems. For Newslink on WADR, April Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, women make up roughly half of Africa's population, yet they remain significantly underrepresented in the continent's political leadership. So what continues to stand in the way of women reaching positions of power, and what will it take to change that? At the Amuje Forum in Dakar, organized by the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center for Women and Development, WDL spoke with Aminata Toure, former Prime Minister of Senegal, about the role, challenges, and prospects of women's leadership in Africa.
It feels good to see such a gathering of powerful women. That reminds us that African women are moving forward and the sky should be the only limit. And we would like to pass that message to the younger women leaders. And we are going to talk about so many issues: violence in politics, how we have to work to get more financing for women who want to be elected, how we should partner with feminist men. All these issues are very important, and we can share our experiences.
What are the major challenges that you feel that women are facing when it comes to politics itself?
That's the mindset. This is a patriarchal society when I talk about the universal society, because all societies are patriarchal. So we are swimming against the tide. We have to work against stereotypes. We have to juggle between our professional, family, and political lives, because these are different lives altogether. And while the challenges are there, but we're moving forward. We're seeing progress, but we have to accelerate the pace, and we have to strategize maybe better. I dream of an alliance between young people and women, which form 80% of the electorate. So together we would win any election. And that's the most discriminated groups, actually, in Africa, if you look at it.
Let's look at the issue of politics of the money, because most of the time when we talk about women in politics, something comes up, which is politics is expensive and a lot of time women cannot afford it. What would you suggest should be done to ensure that women have access to political roles if they should occupy them?
But let me tell you, that's the challenge for all politicians, not only women, to get clean money. But I must say that women are more shy when it comes to, fundraising. They're very proud about it. So we have to have also a mechanism. Here in Senegal, we are talking about financing political parties. Maybe within the provision of that law, we should have a special provision for women in politics, for instance. But, we have to find the right strategies, grassroots fund mobilizations, and so on. Well, two presidents were sitting in the room. They made it. So it's feasible. It's doable.
Let's also focus a bit on the fact that women are mostly used as mobilizers. What should be done to change this?
Well, I mean, they have to be daring. That's my key word. They have to have the courage to lead. I mean, then we need to work with young ladies to make them courageous, because the environment is tough. I mean, with social network, the attacks, the verbal attacks, the violence, where we have to help them find a strategy, because it's all about coping. The political parties are not going to transform themselves overnight. So it's about self-confidence. It's about networking within women and an alliance with young people. Some women made it. It means it's doable. It's feasible.
Also, the issue is gender quotas. You did say that, yes, Senegal is fortunate, but in a lot of countries in the sub-region, we see that there's a lot of clamoring to ensure that women have reserved seats, women have access to power. What do you think are the major reasons that are impeding the progress when it comes to ensuring that women have seats reserved for them?
If I come back to the case of Senegal, it was a long struggle. It requires fighting, it requires networking, it requires leadership. But as I said, we did it. So there is no magic bullet to this. You just have to work. You just have to make sure that women are in the electoral list, that they are candidate, that they have a critical number, in the parliament to change the laws. But I think we should take up the issue to the African Union and make it mandatory for countries who have signed the charter saying that everybody's equal, men or women, and then start the work with countries so they can comply to a resolution that would be taken by the African Union. I think that's the way to fasten the process.
That was Aminata Toure, former Prime Minister of Senegal. And in sport news, the Super Falcons of Nigeria won't be at the 2027 World Cup. That's because the defending Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON champions fell to South Africa in the continent's playoff for the tournament. Nigeria lost to Cameroon in the quarterfinals of the 2026 WAFCON and got a lifeline via the playoff. However, on Thursday, it was South Africa who had a better of their opponents, defeating the perennial champions 2-1 to get on the continent's tickets to the Intercontinental playoff. It will be the first time Nigeria will not be at the World Cup since the inception of the tournament in 1991. Earlier, Ghana kept alive their dream of playing at the 2027 Women's World Cup with a crucial win over Cote d'Ivoire on Thursday. The Black Queens defeated Cote d'Ivoire 2-1 at the Labi Zuli Stadium, coming from behind to seal victory in the play-in game. Meanwhile, Cameroon will face giant killer Malawi in the final of the WAFCON after defeating host Morocco 3-1 on penalties, following a 0-0 draw after extra time. Malawi are ranked 153rd in the world, 116 places below the pre-WAFCON favorites and record 10-time champions Nigeria, who bowed out in the quarterfinals. Apart from Nigeria, the only other countries to become WAFCON champions since its debut in 1998 were Equatorial Guinea twice and South Africa once. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudo Ju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at WADR English. Well, do join Afa Abubakar at 1 p.m. for our French language news info chez vous. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.